Have you ever wondered what is an A1C? Yes, we all know it measures to see if you're diabetic, and normal, they would say, is up to 5.6. Okay. Over that, you consider prediabetes, but you're really diabetic. It means you're at least insulin resistant. So, is the A1C a true measure? What is it? What does it measure? And if that is good, will you assume you're automatically non insulin resistant? Stay tuned. This is Joe Falco, your family nurse practitioner. Food for medicine. Buckle up, guys and gals. We're going to take you there and any other questions that you might have. Let's go. So, A1C, it's called hemoglobin A1C. What is it? Well, it's a measure how much sugar is attached to a red blood cell. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty. I want to keep it simple. What all this medical mumbo jumbo? No. It's a measure how much sugar is attached to a red blood cell. But you only can run it minimum like every 90 days. Now, why is that? Well, erythrocytes, red blood cells, have a cell program life for about 90 days and they die. That's normal. That's called apoptosis. That's called programmed cell death. All cells in your body have a programmed death time. They do. They multiply and they die to replace new ones. Completely normal. We're not going to get into the cancer stuff right now, but we're not going there at this moment. So what happens is, right, an A1C, you don't have to fast for that test because it's an average of 90 days. So you do an A1C and it comes back, you're 5.3. Okay, if that's the only test your doctor runs, you'll assume at this point you're not diabetic. But can you still be on your way to insulin resistance, even though 5.3 is a far cry from 5.7, right? Yes. And this is how it works. I said A1C is an average of 90 days. So to do it less than 90 days, it won't really matter much. But there are a couple other tests. Your doctor, if he's aware of it, which maybe he should be, or if not, maybe you could ask him, something called a fasting insulin. Well, what is that? Well, when you're fasting, how much insulin your body's producing. So, for instance, up to I think 17 to 18 on the fasting thing of fasting insulin is considered normal. You want to be under 18, 17 in that range. So your A1C is 5.3 or 5.4, and your insulin is 7. Okay, looks pretty good. But if I ran this same test a year later, now your A1C is still the same, 5.3, 5.4, but now your fasting insulin went up to 10. Well, your fasting insulin went up to 10. What's going on? Well, what's happening is your body is producing more insulin to keep the blood sugar stable. That's an ominous sign in itself. It should be back where it was. That means your carbohydrate intake and your insulin is fine. Everything's working order. If that fasting insulin starts rising, your A1C is not going to necessarily go up right away. So if you did A1C every 2 years like that, every year, it might be exactly the same, but your fasting insulin might go past 17 or 18. And then the A1C is going to start to rise, but that's the last one to rise. If you knew your insulin in 2 years later was 7, now it's 10, we got a little bit of an issue here. We got to address this. Another test they could do is called the C-peptide. What is C-peptide? Well, C-peptide is measuring, and that test doesn't have to be fasted. It's measuring how much insulin your body's producing. Normal, they want you, I guess, under a certain level. It escapes me off the top of my head. But if that is rising every couple of years, it's the same situation as the insulin. The insulin should be done fasting, and the C-peptide can be done fasted, but it doesn't matter. It won't affect that as the A1C. Actually, C-peptide is a very good indicator of how much sugar your body. I think you got to be somewhere under 4 or something like that, 3.5. So in my case, my C-peptide is 0.6. And my insulin is 7, and my A1C is 4.6. I don't eat many carbs. Don't need to. So every year or so, I do it and I check those same levels. So even my A1C is in the fours. You still want to make sure that you're not eating enough carbs. In my case, I don't eat many carbs, maybe 10, 15 a day at most. Maybe I'll have an avocado, might have 4 or 5, nothing heavy. Also, another indicator is triglyceride level. What is triglycerides? Well, a doctor will tell you, and he'll show you it's part of your lipid panel. It's considered fat. It is, but it didn't originate from fatty food. It comes from fructose. Yep. And or alcohol, both. So every time you eat something with fructose, a lot of fructose, it goes right to your liver. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol goes directly to your liver. And your body will turn that sugar into fat. That's how it deals with that. It doesn't raise the glucose. Well, part of it will, but the part that's glucose will. But the alcohol, not directly. I mean, you put mixes in it, it will, but with straight alcohol, it goes right to the liver, and your body turns it into triglycerides. So if your triglycerides are getting high, the chances are your insulin C-peptide are going to rise too, because that's directly related to a carbohydrate. The higher triglycerides, the more insulin resistant you're going to be, and more of a risk for a heart attack. So the bottom line is this. If you're only using the A1C, I mean, which doesn't, if your A1C is high, you're diabetic. There's no two ways about it. But if it's not high, you still need to check your fasting insulin and your C-peptide. If your doctor hasn't done that, do so. Also, too, there's another test that some people do. Mostly you see it with pregnant women. They do the glucose tolerance test. Well, it's pretty simple. Anytime you eat something, and if your blood glucose, right, if you eat goes to 200, you're diabetic. Case closed, doesn't matter what. You're diabetic. If you're fasting, like when you do these blood works, you fasted, and they do glucose, if you're more than 126, you're diabetic. 100 to 126, if you fasted 8 hours, means you are pre-diabetic or insulin resistant. It should be, if everything's functioning right, between 70 and 90. If everything's functioning fine. If it's over 100 and you fasted for 8 to 10 hours, you got a slight problem. We got some work to do, right? A lot of times your doctor will tell you, let's get you on metformin. Don't need it. Metformin is an insulin sensitizer. It gets reshuffled back to the liver, and your body won't produce anymore. It has its good and has its bad. It depletes your body of vitamin B12 and can lead to lactic acidosis. But the big problem with these orals like metformin, then you got glipizide, all of them, it makes you think that you can eat what you want and get away with it when you're not addressing the original symptom. Too many carbohydrates, way too many. So if this happens and your doctor's telling you metformin, say, doc, why not go on a ketogenic diet? And he might tell you, well, it will work, but it's not a good long-term strategy, which is nonsense. If you've been listening to me, you know that it is an excellent long-term. It will eliminate insulin resistance. It will eliminate it. You don't have anything to worry about. If you're on a very low-carb diet, say under 50, 60 a day, even maybe under 20, you will maintain a perfect existence. You won't have any trouble. And if your cholesterol does happen to go high, don't worry. If your sugar is under control, you're going to be okay. You keep the triglycerides low, your HDL moderately high, you're not going to have any problems. But it's about watching the sugar. So, in conclusion, A1C is not the final indicator if you're insulin resistant. If it's over 6, you're diabetic. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're diabetic. But if it's 5.3, 5.4, and you seem fine, you might be. Check that insulin. Watch if the fasting insulin rises and your C-peptide over the years. If that's rising, you got some work to do. But fear not, we have solutions here. That's why I'm here for you. to cut all the nonsense out. As you see, my call myself no bull health and fitness. That is, it's pretty. I try to keep it very basic, not to get into all these explanations that your doctor fails to do. Not knocking your doctor. Doctor's a good guy. I know a lot of them, especially if they're family doctors. They get paid by insurance. They don't get paid much for you. If your co-payment is probably more than what they're going to get. So they don't have that much time. They depend on volume. People come to me privately, and I don't kill them financially when they come to me. My private practice, I take care of them. I understand, but my goal here is not to get rich. My goal here is to spread the word on proper nutrition, proper lifestyle. You don't need medications. You might need medications early if your sugar's way out of control. Your A1C is like 12. We have to get that down. Or if your blood pressure is over 160, yes, we're going to have to get that down. But if you're in a reasonable range, you may be high, we can fix this without meds and change your lifestyle and make you a healthier individual. That's what this is all about. I hope this cleared up some misinformation, some disinformation, or lack of knowledge. Anyway, you have a great day. God bless.